April 3, 1941. Taranto Harbor, southern Italy, 06:23 hours. Maria Fortuna walked along the waterfront with a shopping basket and a smile. Just another Italian housewife buying fish from the morning market. The carabinieri barely glanced at her. Women were invisible in wartime, useful for cooking and laundry, irrelevant to military matters. They didn't notice the small wooden box in her basket, painted like a child's toy, carved with flowers and doves. Inside, a camera so sophisticated that British intelligence had spent 6 months miniaturizing it. Maria stopped at a fish stall, haggled over prices, laughed at the vendor's jokes, and while she counted coins, her right hand pressed a hidden button. Click. The toy box captured what Allied reconnaissance aircraft had been searching for desperately: the Italian battleship Vittorio Veneto, supposedly damaged at Cape Matapan 2 weeks ago, supposedly under repair for months. Except it wasn't under repair. It was loading ammunition, preparing to sail, ready to intercept Allied convoys heading to Egypt. Malta would receive Maria's photographs in 18 hours. The Royal Navy would deploy in 36. And in 72 hours, Vittorio Veneto would be at the bottom of the Mediterranean. All because a housewife carried a toy box, and nobody suspected a thing. To understand Maria Fortuna, you need to go back to 1938, when she was Maria Bianchi, a 24-year-old mathematics teacher in Milan with absolutely no interest in espionage. She taught algebra and geometry to bored teenagers. She lived with her mother. She went to Mass on Sundays. Her life was ordinary, predictable, safe. Then Mussolini allied Italy with Nazi Germany, and Maria's Jewish fiancé, David Levi, disappeared. Arrested in October 1938, under Italy's new racial laws. Sent to a detention camp. Maria tried everything: petitions, bribes, appeals to local officials. Nothing worked. David was gone. By 1939, he was dead. Typhus, officially. Maria never believed it. Grief turned to rage. Rage turned to purpose. If the government wouldn't listen to petitions, maybe they'd listen to something else. Maria contacted an underground anti-fascist network in Milan. "I want to help. I'll do anything." They were skeptical. A school teacher? What could she offer? "I can go places men can't. I can hear conversations you can't access. Women are invisible in this country. Treat us like furniture. That's my advantage." The network tested her. Small assignments. Deliver messages, observe troop movements, report on local officials. Maria proved capable, careful, invisible. In March 1940, British intelligence made contact through the network. They needed someone in southern Italy. Someone who could observe naval activity at Taranto, Italy's primary Mediterranean naval base. The risk was enormous. Taranto was militarized. Security everywhere. One mistake, one suspicious glance, and Maria would be arrested, tortured, executed. "Why me?" Maria asked the British handler. "Because you're a woman. Because you're unremarkable. Because the Italians will never suspect you. And because," he paused, "you have a reason to do this that goes beyond politics." "David?" "Yes. We can't bring him back. But we can make sure his death means something." Maria accepted. British intelligence set her up with a cover identity. Maria Fortuna, war widow, relocated from Genoa to Taranto to live with her aunt, actually another intelligence asset. She'd work as a seamstress, completely ordinary, completely invisible, and she'd carry a toy box with a camera inside. The camera was extraordinary, designed by British optical engineers, miniaturized into a container smaller than a cigarette pack. The wooden box was simply camouflage, carved to look like folk art, the kind of trinket sold in every Italian market. Maria memorized her training: how to activate the camera, how to aim without looking, how to photograph documents, ships, equipment, most importantly, how to stay invisible. "Never act like a spy," her trainer said. "Act like what you are, a poor widow trying to survive. Gossip, complain about prices, be forgettable." Maria became forgettable, and in that invisibility, she became lethal. Taranto Harbor was the heart of Italy's Mediterranean fleet. 6 battleships, 19 cruisers, dozens of destroyers. The Regia Marina, Italy's Royal Navy, represented a major threat to Allied operations. British convoys to Egypt had to pass through the Mediterranean, vulnerable to Italian attack. The Royal Navy had struck Taranto in November 1940, Operation Judgment, a torpedo bomber raid that damaged 3 battleships. It was a stunning success, temporarily crippling Italian naval power. But by April 1941, intelligence suggested Italy was recovering. Ships were being repaired. The fleet was rebuilding. Soon they'd resume operations. The problem? Aerial reconnaissance couldn't see inside repair facilities. Battleships under cover, hidden in dry docks, were invisible to aircraft. British intelligence needed someone on the ground. They needed Maria. She established her routine carefully. Every morning, shopping at the waterfront market. Every afternoon, sewing in her small apartment. Every evening, attending Mass at Santa Caterina Church. Completely normal. Completely invisible. But during shopping trips, Maria photographed everything. Warships at anchor. Cranes loading supplies. Sailors moving equipment. Her toy box camera clicked constantly, never drawing attention. The photographs were remarkable. Clear, detailed, professionally composed. Maria had an eye for intelligence value. She didn't just photograph ships. She photographed what the ships were doing. Loading ammunition meant preparing to sail. Refueling meant imminent departure. Workers removing scaffolding meant repairs complete. Every week, Maria delivered her film to a dead drop, a loose brick behind Santa Caterina Church. A courier would collect it, smuggle it to Malta on fishing boats evading Italian patrols. British intelligence would develop the film, analyze it, distribute it to fleet commanders. One analyst at Malta wrote, "Agent Fortuna provides the best naval intelligence we've received from any source. Her photographs are more valuable than a dozen reconnaissance flights." But the work was psychologically crushing. Maria lived in constant fear. Every carabiniere she passed could be the one who noticed. Every neighbor's question could be a trap. Every night she wondered if tomorrow she'd wake up to Gestapo agents breaking down her door. She wrote in a diary, never sent, hidden under floorboards, her true feelings. "I am 2 people now. Maria the seamstress who smiles and gossips and complains about egg prices, and Maria the spy who sees everything, trusts nothing, carries death in a wooden box. I don't know which one is real anymore. Maybe neither. Maybe I died when David did, and this is just my ghost doing what ghosts do, haunting the living." The first major discovery came on March 30th, 1941. British intelligence had received reports that the battleship Vittorio Veneto, damaged at the Battle of Cape Matapan 2 weeks earlier, would be under repair for at least 3 months. Italian radio broadcasts confirmed severe damage, unable to sail, no threat to Allied operations. But Maria's photographs told a different story. She'd photographed Vittorio Veneto from 3 different angles over 5 days. The images showed minimal damage, repair work proceeding rapidly. Most tellingly, ammunition being loaded, fresh supplies arriving, crew drilling on deck. The ship wasn't crippled. It was preparing to sail. Malta's intelligence officer, Commander Ian Fleming, yes, that Ian Fleming, future author of James Bond, studied Maria's photographs and immediately understood the implications. They're lying. Vittorio Veneto is combat ready, or will be within days. His superior was skeptical. Our reconnaissance shows significant damage. Reconnaissance sees what they want us to see. Maria sees what's actually there, and what's there is a battleship about to rejoin the fleet. Fleming sent an urgent cable to Admiral Andrew Cunningham, commander of the Mediterranean Fleet. Ultra-reliable source, confirms Vittorio Veneto combat ready. Expect sailing within 72 hours. Recommend immediate action. Cunningham trusted Fleming's assessment. He ordered the aircraft carrier HMS Formidable and 4 cruisers to position themselves off the Italian coast. If Vittorio Veneto sailed, they'd be waiting. On April 3rd, Maria photographed Vittorio Veneto preparing to depart. Crew assembling on deck, tugboats positioning, harbor patrol clearing approach lanes. Her photographs reached Malta that evening via emergency courier, a fishing boat that risked Italian patrol interception to deliver the film immediately. Fleming developed the photos personally, studied them under magnification, then called Cunningham. "She's sailing tonight. You have 6 hours." Cunningham positioned his forces. At 22:15, Vittorio Veneto left Taranto, heading east toward the convoy routes. At 03:40 on April 4th, British cruisers detected her on radar. At 04:15, torpedo bombers from Formidable attacked. 3 torpedoes struck home. Vittorio Veneto, flooding and crippled, limped back to Taranto. She never sailed again for the rest of the war. And the only reason the Royal Navy knew where to position, The only reason they were ready was Maria's toy box camera. Fleming wrote in his report, Agent Fortuna prevented what could have been a catastrophic convoy loss. Her intelligence directly resulted in neutralization of Italy's most dangerous capital ship. Recommend immediate commendation. But Maria would never receive official recognition. Spies can't be publicly honored. Their survival depends on anonymity. So Maria continued her routine, shopping, sewing, photographing, invisible. Success brought new pressures. After the Vittorio Veneto operation, British intelligence increased Maria's tasking. They wanted more photographs, more intelligence, more risk. Can you access the Naval Headquarters building? Fleming asked through a coded message. Maria replied, As a seamstress? No. As a cleaning woman? Perhaps. She took a second job, cleaning offices in the harbor master's building. It meant less sleep, more exposure, exponentially more danger. But it gave her access to offices where naval officers left documents on desks overnight. Her toy box camera photographed fleet deployment orders, maintenance schedules, ammunition inventory reports. Every night she'd spend 2 hours photographing papers, then carefully replace everything exactly as she'd found it. One mistake, one document slightly out of place, and she'd be discovered. The psychological toll was devastating. Maria developed insomnia. She'd lie awake replaying every interaction, analyzing every glance, questioning whether she'd aroused suspicion. Did the officer look at me too long? Did I put his papers back in the right order? Did I leave fingerprints? Her diary entries became darker. May 15, 1941. I cleaned Commander Rossi's office tonight. On his desk, orders for submarine deployment. I photographed them. But afterward I realized, those orders will help British ships hunt Italian submarines. Italian sailors will die. Boys from Naples, from Sicily, from Rome. They'll die because I took photographs. And I feel nothing. I used to cry. Now I just count the pages and move to the next office. What have I become? The isolation was crushing. She couldn't confide in anyone. Couldn't form real friendships. Every relationship was potentially compromising. She lived surrounded by people but utterly alone. Worse, she was becoming paranoid. Every conversation felt like interrogation. Every question, innocent inquiries about her day, sounded like traps. In June 1941, a neighbor asked, Maria, I saw you at the harbor yesterday. Do you have family in the Navy? Maria's heart stopped. No, just shopping for fish. Why? No reason. You seem to go there often. Fish is cheaper at the harbor market. Of course, just curious. The neighbor walked away. Maria spent 3 days terrified, expecting arrest. But nothing happened. It was innocent curiosity, not surveillance. But the incident shook her. One careless moment, one suspicious pattern, and years of work would end in a torture chamber. She wrote to Fleming through her handler, I need extraction. I'm compromised psychologically. I see threats everywhere. I'll make mistakes. Fleming's reply was cold. Maintain position. Your intelligence is irreplaceable. Extraction not authorized. Maria understood. She was expendable, valuable, but expendable. So she kept working, kept photographing, kept dying inside. By summer 1941, Italian counterintelligence knew they had a leak. Too many operations compromised. Too many British ships waiting in exactly the right positions. Too much intelligence appearing in Allied hands. The Servizio Informazioni Militare, SIM, Italian military intelligence, launched an investigation. They suspected radio intercepts initially, but code analysis showed Italian naval codes remained secure, so the leak was human intelligence. A spy, in Taranto. Colonel Alberto Santini, SIM's chief of counterintelligence for southern Italy, arrived in Taranto with a mandate. Find the spy by any means necessary. He started with the obvious suspects. Dock workers, Navy personnel, port officials, anyone with access to operational information. Interrogations were brutal. Suspects were arrested, held without charge, questioned for hours. Some confessed to crimes they hadn't committed just to end the interrogation, but the leaks continued. Santini broadened his search. Maybe the spy wasn't obvious. Maybe they were hiding in plain sight. He instituted new security procedures, random searches, surveillance of harbor areas, plainclothes agents watching for suspicious behavior. Maria noticed immediately. The atmosphere changed. Carabinieri, who'd previously been casual and bored, now watched carefully, questioned vendors, checked papers. She adapted, became even more invisible, photographed less frequently, took circuitous routes to her dead drop, varied her routine subtly, sometimes shopping at morning market, sometimes afternoon, sometimes skipping days entirely. Fleming noticed her production declining. He sent a coded message. Why reduced activity? Maria replied. Increased counterintelligence presence. Santini. Dangerous. Must be cautious. Fleming understood. But he also had orders from London. Mediterranean intelligence is priority 1, except increased risk. So Fleming pushed. Can you photograph new minefield deployments, cruiser maintenance schedules, submarine patrol patterns? Each request increased Maria's danger. But she complied. Because what else could she do? Stop spying and David's death became meaningless. Continue and risk her own. She chose continuation. But Santini was methodical. He created a profile. The spy has consistent access to harbor areas. They operate during daylight. Our leaked intelligence includes details only observable during day. They transmit information regularly but not daily. They're embedded in local population, not transient. The profile fit hundreds of people, but it was narrowing. In August 1941, Santini had a breakthrough. British ships had positioned perfectly to intercept an Italian convoy. The positioning required intelligence no more than 48 hours old. Santini checked his surveillance logs. Who accessed the harbor in that 48-hour window? The list had 247 names. Maria Fortuna was number 183, September 1941. Maria knew she was being watched. She couldn't identify specific surveillance. No obvious followers, no agents staring. But instinct, honed over 18 months of espionage, screamed danger. A plainclothes carabinier seemed to appear wherever she went. The same face at the market, at church, near her apartment. Coincidence? Or surveillance? She stopped photographing for 2 weeks. Too dangerous. Fleming sent increasingly urgent messages. Need intelligence on battleship repairs. Critical. Maria ignored them. Survival trumped mission requirements, but the silence itself was dangerous. If she stopped completely, her handlers might assume she'd been compromised and burn the entire network. Other agents, other operations, all endangered. She had to continue, but carefully, minimally. On September 18th, she made a decision that would haunt her forever. There was a young Italian naval officer, Lieutenant Giuseppe Romano, who frequented the same market. He'd spoken to her several times, polite, friendly, clearly interested romantically. Maria had rebuffed him gently, maintaining her war widow cover. But now she saw an opportunity. If she accepted Romano's attention, she'd appear more normal. A lonely widow finally opening her heart. Completely understandable. Not suspicious at all. And if Romano trusted her, maybe he'd talk, share information, become an unwitting intelligence source. So Maria accepted Romano's invitation to coffee. He was sweet, sincere, 23 years old, from a village near Palermo, serving his country but clearly uncomfortable with war. He talked about his family, his hopes, his fears. Maria listened, smiled, touched his hand gently, and felt like a monster. Because she wasn't there for romance, she was there for intelligence. And Romano, kind, trusting, innocent, had no idea he was being manipulated. Over 3 weeks, she extracted valuable information. Romano, trying to impress her, mentioned his ship's deployment schedule, described repair work on a cruiser, complained about ammunition shortages. Maria photographed documents he'd carelessly left in his jacket while they had dinner. She hated herself for it, but she did it anyway. Her diary, September 30th. Giuseppe kissed me today. He thinks I'm falling in love with him. He thinks we have a future together, and I let him believe it because believing it makes him trust me. And trust makes him careless, and careless makes him useful. David, if you can see me, I'm so sorry. I've become something horrible. Something necessary but horrible. The intelligence was valuable. Fleming praised her work, but Maria felt nothing except emptiness. She was using a good man to kill other good men, and she couldn't stop. October 15th, 1941. Everything unraveled. Giuseppe Romano mentioned casually over dinner. My superior, Commander Bellini, is investigating security leaks. He thinks someone's photographing documents. Maria's blood froze. Really? How exciting. Do they have suspects? Not yet, but Bellini's thorough. He'll find whoever it is. That night, Maria sent an emergency signal to Malta. Counterintelligence closing in. Request extraction. Fleming's reply came 12 hours later. Extraction not possible. Critical intelligence required. One final task. Photograph fleet deployment orders for Operation Crusader response. Then we'll extract. Maria understood. They were squeezing her for every drop before burning the asset. Operation Crusader was Britain's upcoming offensive in North Africa. Italy would respond by attacking supply convoys. If Maria could photograph those response orders, the Royal Navy could position to intercept Italian ships before they reached the convoys. One last mission. One final intelligence coup. Then escape. But accessing those orders meant breaking into Bellini's office, the most secure location in the Harbor Command building, where Bellini kept his investigation files, including possibly files on Maria. She had no choice. Refuse, and Fleming might abandon her anyway. Complete the mission, and at least she'd have extraction guaranteed. On October 20th, Maria stayed late at the command building, cleaning offices slowly, waiting for the building to empty. By 22 Cow, only sentries remained. Bellini's office was locked, but cleaning staff had master keys. Maria opened the door, heart pounding so hard she thought guards would hear it. The deployment orders were on Bellini's desk. Maria photographed them with her toy box camera, hands shaking. Then she saw the investigation file, labeled Harbor Spy Investigation. She opened it. Inside, surveillance reports, lists of suspects, photographs of harbor areas, and a photograph of her, taken 3 days ago at the fish market. Caption beneath, Subject 183, Maria Fortuna, under observation. Maria's world collapsed. They knew. They were watching. The extraction needed to happen tonight or she was dead. She photographed the investigation file, evidence of what Sim knew, what they suspected. Then she carefully replaced everything, locked the office, walked out, past 2 guards who nodded politely. Good night, Signora Fortuna. Good night. She walked home, activated the emergency extraction signal, packed nothing, suspicious to carry luggage, just her toy box camera hidden in her coat. At 23:45, a British submarine would surface 3 miles offshore. A rubber boat would come ashore. Maria would be there, if she made it. Maria waited at the extraction point, a secluded beach north of Taranto, barely breathing. 23:30. The submarine was late. Or she'd misunderstood the signal. Or the whole thing was a trap. 23:40. Still nothing. Then, a shape in the darkness. A rubber boat. 2 men paddling silently. Maria waded into the surf. The men grabbed her, pulled her aboard, paddled frantically back toward the submarine. Behind them on the shore, lights, voices. Someone had seen them. Go faster, Maria whispered. We're going as fast as we can, miss. Searchlights from the shore swept across the water. A gunshot cracked. The bullet hit water 20 feet away. The submarine's conning tower appeared. Hands pulled Maria up the ladder. She tumbled inside. The hatch sealed. The submarine dove. Maria collapsed on the deck, shaking uncontrollably. A British officer helped her up. You're safe now. Welcome aboard HMS Upholder. Bellini knows. He has my photograph. We know. Fleming sent your intel. We'll notify your network. Everyone connected to you will evacuate or go dark. Giuseppe. Lieutenant Romano. He'll be questioned. They'll think he helped me. The officer said nothing. Because they both knew the truth. Giuseppe would be arrested, interrogated, possibly executed. And there was nothing Maria could do. She'd used him. And now he'd pay the price. HMS Upholder transported Maria to Malta. She arrived October 22nd, exhausted, traumatized, alive. Fleming met her at the dock. The intelligence you provided, the deployment orders, the investigation file, may have just won us the Mediterranean. Congratulations. Maria looked at him coldly. Giuseppe Romano. What happens to him? He'll be investigated, probably imprisoned. If he's lucky, he was innocent. He didn't know. I know, but that's war. Innocent people suffer. Maria's voice was ice. You used me. You used Giuseppe. You squeezed every drop of intelligence and then extracted me only when I was about to be captured. Yes, you're a monster. Fleming didn't deny it. Perhaps. But I'm a monster who just helped save thousands of Allied soldiers. You provided intelligence that will prevent Italian fleet interdiction of Operation Crusader. Convoys will get through. Soldiers will receive supplies and some of them will survive because of you. And Giuseppe will be one of the costs, I'm sorry. But that's the mathematics of espionage. Maria turned away. I want to go home. You can't. Italy knows your face. You're compromised. You'll work for us here. Analysis, training new agents, debriefing. I didn't ask for this. No one does. But here we are. Maria realized she'd escaped Taranto, but she'd never escaped the war. London, England. Maria Fortuna, now Maria Chambers, married to a British civil servant, mother of two, sat in a conference room at the Imperial War Museum. They were recording oral histories of intelligence operations. A historian wanted her story. Mrs. Chambers, you were recruited in 1940, operated in Taranto for 18 months, extracted in October 1941. Your intelligence directly contributed to several major operations. How do you feel about that work now, looking back? Maria, 69 years old, gray-haired, still sharp, considered the question. I feel proud and ashamed simultaneously. Proud because I helped. Ashamed because of the costs. Can you elaborate? There was a young Italian officer, Giuseppe Romano. He trusted me. I used that trust. After my extraction, he was arrested, interrogated. He died in custody. Officially suicide, but I doubt it. He died because I manipulated him. And I live with that. You also saved thousands of Allied lives. I know. But does that balance? 10,000 Allied soldiers saved versus one innocent Italian officer killed? Mathematically, yes. Morally, I don't know. The historian hesitated. Do you regret your work? No, I regret the necessity of it. If I could go back knowing everything, would I do it again? Yes. Because David died in a detention camp. Because fascism needed to be stopped. Because sometimes you do terrible things for necessary reasons. But necessary doesn't mean easy. It doesn't mean guilt-free. What about the toy box camera? We have it in our collection now. When you see it, what do you think? Maria laughed bitterly. I think that stupid wooden box changed the war, and it cost me my soul. Every photograph I took on every click of that camera meant someone would die. Italian sailors, German soldiers, sometimes civilians in the wrong place. And I did it thousands of times. Thousands of clicks. Thousands of deaths. But you were fighting evil. Evil is never pure. The Italians I spied on. Some were fascists, but some were just boys from villages, conscripted into service, fighting because they'd be shot if they didn't. Were they evil? Or were they victims too? That's a difficult question. Yes, and I've been asking it for 42 years. I still don't have an answer. The historian turned off the recording. Mrs. Chambers, thank you. Your story, will it be published? In 25 years, per official secrets restrictions. Good. By then I'll be dead. And I won't have to read comments from people who think they know what they would have done. They don't. No one knows until they're there. The deeper significance of Maria's toy box camera wasn't technological. It was psychological. Espionage has always existed, but traditional spies were men, diplomats, military officers, businessmen, people with plausible reasons to access sensitive information. Women were ignored, dismissed, invisible. Maria exploited that invisibility. She moved through spaces where male spies couldn't go. Markets, churches, cleaning offices late at night. She had conversations male spies couldn't have, and she carried equipment male spies couldn't conceal. A man carrying a camera case. Suspicious. A woman carrying a toy box. Harmless. The British intelligence service understood this. They recruited dozens of female agents during WY2, all exploiting the same psychological blind spot. Societies that devalue women create opportunities for those women to operate undetected. One intelligence historian wrote, "The Axis powers lost the intelligence war partly because they couldn't imagine women as threats. Their misogyny became their weakness. But this invisibility had a darker side. Women spies who were captured received no prisoner of war protections. They were classified as illegal combatants, tortured, executed, bodies disappeared. Male spies, if captured in uniform, might be imprisoned. Female spies were killed. The risk was exponentially higher. The recognition was exponentially lower. Maria received no public commendation during her lifetime. The toy box camera sat in classified archives for 40 years. When her story was finally declassified in 1985, most newspapers gave it 3 paragraphs. Meanwhile, male intelligence officers like Ian Fleming became celebrities. Fleming wrote James Bond novels based loosely on his wartime experiences, including Maria's operations, but with male agents as protagonists. Maria never complained publicly, but privately in letters to fellow former agents she wrote, We were useful when invisible. After the war, they wanted us invisible permanently. The men get novels and movies. We get footnotes. This pattern extended beyond espionage. Women's contributions to WU2, code breakers, factory workers, resistance fighters, were systematically undervalued in post-war narratives. It took decades for historians to correct the record, to acknowledge that wars are won by everyone, including the invisible people doing invisible work with invisible tools. Maria's toy box camera is now displayed at the Imperial War Museum. The plaque reads, "Operated by Agent Fortuna, this camera provided critical naval intelligence, 1940, 1941. No mention of Maria's name. Even in recognition, she remains partially invisible. Perhaps that's fitting. Perhaps that's the spy's fate, to change history anonymously. Or perhaps it's one more instance of history erasing women's contributions. Maria never got to decide which interpretation was true. In 1987, 2 years before her death, Maria gave a final interview to a young historian writing a comprehensive study of female intelligence agents. The historian asked, "What do you want people to understand about your work?" Maria thought for a long time, then spoke slowly, choosing each word carefully. "I want them to understand that espionage is not glamorous. It's not James Bond. It's loneliness and terror and moral compromise. Every photograph I took, I knew, this will get someone killed. Maybe enemy soldiers, maybe civilians, maybe innocent people in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I took the photographs anyway, not because I enjoyed it, not because I was a sociopath, but because the alternative, letting fascism win, was worse. That's the central truth they don't tell you when they recruit you. You will do things that horrify you. You will betray people who trust you. You will carry guilt for the rest of your life." Giuseppe Romano haunts me. 50 years later, I still see his face. I used him. I destroyed him. And I do it again because the intelligence he inadvertently provided saved Allied lives. Does that make me evil? Does that make me a hero? I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe neither. What I do know is this. War strips away the luxury of moral purity. It forces you into choices where every option is terrible, and you have to choose anyway, and then you have to live with it. People want simple stories, good guys versus bad guys, heroes versus villains, but real war is complex. Real espionage is morally ambiguous, and real agents are just people trying to survive while doing damage to the enemy. My toy box camera, people see it as clever, innovative, a symbol of Allied ingenuity, and it was, but it was also a weapon that killed as surely as any rifle. It just killed invisibly, indirectly, through consequences rather than bullets. So, when people ask if I'm proud of my service, I say, I'm proud I helped defeat fascism. I'm not proud of the methods. I'm haunted by the costs, and I'm tired of carrying this weight alone. Every spy carries this weight. Every intelligence agent has blood on their hands, metaphorically, but real. And we don't talk about it because the official narrative requires us to be heroes. But heroes don't exist, just people making terrible choices for necessary reasons. She paused, then added, "And I wish someone had told me that before I started. Maybe I still would have done it, but at least I'd have known." Maria Fortuna died in 1989, age 75, in a quiet London suburb. Her obituary in the Times was 6 paragraphs. It mentioned her work in intelligence during the war, but provided no details. Most readers skipped past it. Her toy box camera remained in museum storage until 1995, when a curator rediscovered it while cataloging WU2 artifacts. Its significance, thousands of intelligence photographs, multiple compromised Italian operations, direct contribution to Allied Mediterranean victories, had been forgotten. The museum mounted a special exhibition, Hidden Cameras, Hidden Heroes. Maria's toy box was the centerpiece. The exhibition attracted modest attention, a few hundred visitors, some newspaper coverage, academic interest, but no Hollywood movies, no best-selling biographies, no public memorials. Compare this to Ian Fleming, who received international fame, wealth, literary immortality, or to male spies like Eddie Chapman and Duško Popov, whose stories became popular books and films. Maria's story remained obscure. In 2003, an Italian historian named Giulia Moretti began researching female intelligence agents in WU2. She discovered Maria's declassified files and was stunned. This woman single-handedly provided the most valuable naval intelligence of any agent in the Mediterranean theater. Her work directly contributed to the neutralization of Italy's battleship fleet, and nobody knows her name. Moretti published a comprehensive biography in 2007, The Invisible Spy, Maria Fortuna and the Toy Box Camera. It was critically acclaimed in Italy, translated into 6 languages, finally brought Maria's story to wider attention. The Italian government, in a remarkable gesture, officially pardoned Maria posthumously, acknowledging that while she'd worked against Italy during the war, her motivation was fighting fascism, not betraying her country. In 2010, a memorial plaque was installed in Taranto near the harbor where Maria had operated. It reads, Maria Fortuna, 1914-1989. Italian patriot and Allied agent. She fought fascism with courage and ingenuity. Her intelligence saved countless lives. Her sacrifice reminds us. Heroism takes many forms, including the silent courage of those who work in shadows. Giuseppe Romano's name appears on the same memorial, below Maria's. Giuseppe Romano, 1918-1941. Innocent victim of war and deception. May his memory remind us of war's cruel mathematics, and may we never forget the cost of peace. Maria's 2 children attended the memorial dedication. Her daughter said, "My mother never talked about the war. She carried it silently, privately. I'm glad the world finally knows, but I wish she'd lived to see this recognition." The Toy Box Camera remains at the Imperial War Museum, now properly labeled, now understood, now remembered, as is Maria.